am totally disappointed. In the midst of doing some research, that I was going to utilize Nathan Reynolds as my cheat sheet. So I won't have to dive into more, I guess, making sure my research is accurate, because I don't like to put information out there that don't have credible sources. So I do make sure I find websites and books that are credible. And I mean, I guess that's neither hearsay, but credible to the common people, credible to the educational world, I guess. Anyways, I'm very disappointed because among doing that research, I came across someone who made a video about Nathan Reynolds debunking the things that he say. At first, I was like, yeah, this is probably a family member or a hater. Then I kind of dived more into my own research, and I'm like, this person may not be wrong. I won't say everything that Nathan is saying is incorrect. A lot of what he's saying is correct, which is why it was so much believable to me. I've been researching about the societies within this nation and what this nation was built off for decades. Not decade, decades. So I was like, when I ran across him, I'm like, oh my goodness, he's just summing it all up. But he is also relating it to his own family, and some of that has some discrepancies. So I am going to dive into what I found and let you all do your own research and whether or not you will still want to believe Nathan Reynolds or not. If after you come across this video, I do know that normal society, since America has been invented, we love lies. So I won't be surprised if a million people come out and show evidence on someone fabricating a story for whatever personal gain. They're still going to have followers because that's just the way of the world today. But there are a very few amount of people who are really seeking truth, genuine people, and this is for you. So, yeah. So, is Nathan Reynolds sheep or wolf? In the Confessionals podcast, The Bloodline of Masters with him, he stated that his grandfather was a past president of the American Society of Civil Engineers, and he was the architect of the new Statue of Liberty torch. The Statue of Liberty torch was damaged from weather and they had to replace it. So he claims that his great-grandfather was the one to design that. He states that his father's side of the family is from the East Coast and they moved to the Midwest, Flagstaff, Arizona, to start their empire and make their empire, I guess, of the Illuminati or within the Illuminati. And where he was born in Mount Humphreys in Arizona was a high place for rituals. He states that his mother's side of the family had a different operation. They were from Southeast California, were Catholics and Jesuits, and practiced child abuse, including ASCE. He also stated they moved around a lot because to prevent people catching on to the abuse, they moved around a lot. I include the father's addresses and his addresses below to prove this. He also states that in White Mountains, Arizona, is where he decided he wanted to be more militant. Around 9-ish years old, they moved to Arizona, to Colorado Springs, Colorado, to become. Around that same time, their family went from being poor to becoming more wealthy. And then also his great-grandfather moved in with them. He states that the Reynolds family was more black gold, dirty money laundering stuff. And the other side of the family was white laundering, whatever that means. So on another podcast, the Imagination podcast, and she did several episodes with him. He states his family history again and mentioned that they have a reputation for passing their sons through the fire, like Molech in scripture. He said he is a firstborn son. He said that his grandfather and his dad moved to Pine Top Shallow Lakeside, which when I Google, it's Pine Top Lakeside, Arizona, which is 2.5 to 3 hours away from Mount Humphreys and 2.5 to 3 hours away from Flagstaff, Arizona. So I guess they was driving a lot. Anyways, again, he states that his great-grandfather was the former president of the American Society of Civil Engineers in New York City, and he helped redesign the Statue of Liberty torch. He stated his great-grandfather moved in. He suffered from bodily abuse. His family got wealthy at that time. He started experiencing panic attacks and vomiting a lot while he was in the 3rd grade. And his mom would keep from his dad that he had to come home from school. A 3rd grader will be around 8, 9 years old. Don's obituary states that he moved to Colorado in 2000, and based off of Nathan's age, in 2000 he would have been 11 years old until December. A child whose birthday is in December is approximately in the 7th grade. So that was the discrepancy. However, I'll carry on. Moving on along. Their family moved to White Mountains, Pentop Lake, Arizona. It's the same name when I Googled. To Colorado Springs. And he says that Colorado Springs is the home of 6 to 7 military bases. He states that the president of Evangelical Society, Todd Haggard, New Life, which is a mega church, was also in that area. Colorado Springs had a lot of Christian schools, and during that time he did a lot of self-harm. He attended private Christian school until sophomore year. Then he was homeschooled again for a year. Then his grandfather died in the year 2002. They moved again to outside where a lot of witches and Wicca or white witches lived. The town is 10 minutes from Cascade, Colorado, and 21 minutes away from Woodland Park, Colorado. Both addresses from his father's listed addresses. He also speaks on the family wealth. They owned a hospitality business. No money was invested in his talents and ideas. Ding, ding, ding. So he decided to join the military. He was going to the U.S. Air Force Academy, but chose the U.S. Army instead. While in Knoxville, Kentucky, he was able to get fast-tracked on a more advanced program within the military, but had to go back to school for his senior year. He cheated his way through the school system. After graduating, he attended the University of Colorado to become a psychologist. And then he also finished his summer in the military. He did advanced individual training in Fort Lee, Virginia. There, he became a part of the Night Stalkers, performing covert missions, human hunting, and he states that he was blacklisted from the military because he did not want to bow down to a higher person. He called it a person in a suit. Anyways, I guess before that, in station at Fort Carson, Colorado, they did treatments with soldiers because MTBIs and TBIs. He was getting a lot of drugs, including Ambien. He claimed he was in this program because he got his head bashed in a lot. He states he was put in this program because blows to the head from people trying to kill him. Around this time, a lot of his friends were committing suicide. He tried to as well. Supposedly, he shot himself and stabbed himself on Thanksgiving morning outside of his parents' basement. This supposedly was allegedly reported as a robbery, but later, after questioning, he admitted it was self-inflicted. He explains why he was chosen by his family to be in a Delta program pathway. He states that it had to do with his vivid memory retention form that lets him see, retain, and reiterate information. He states that he has the mark of Cain on his body. They knew he'd be a good fit for record keeping, mentally and internally, for keeping secrets and blackmail. On another podcast, actually the same one, but the Imagination podcast, the one about ex-child assassination on Jason programs, Delta programming, and human hunting. I told you he did a lot with this woman's podcast. He goes into the Delta branch of the U.S. Army, elite team in North Carolina, the Jason Project, extremity low frequency communication. The U.S. Navy requests a communicating like method through the earth to communicate with creatures in earth in the ocean. I did find that program the military is saying that is for like marine communication. He states that the antennas run from like the size, I don't think if actually from this area, but the size of Wisconsin, Minnesota to Lower Canada, about 8,000 miles. A long wire on the ground reaching 6 to 10 words a minute, depending on the cable size. The report is for submarines, and like I said, when I researched it, it did say it's for submarines. He also states his handler was Richard Allen, his dad's best friend. Now, I have no clue, because even with like the things that I found is sketchy, which I'm going to share. But some things that I found, it was a little confusing, because I'm like, okay, this could possibly be true. But who knows? I mean, he probably fabricated his story very well. However, I found some of his family members, a lot of his family members that he mentions, social media, and they do follow a couple black people. There was like an interracial couple. So this can't be far-fetched if this is true. But anyways, at the end of the day, you're going to make your own judgment. And yeah, so his handler, Richard Allen, was his dad's best friend. He didn't mention in, I think, this podcast that the guy was black, but in another podcast, he mentioned the guy was black. He also taught him Filipino martial arts, which was important because Filipinos are, smaller structure. And it was important for them to learn how to maneuver, like as a small person, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, Operation Paperclip was checked off to be true. He also talked about Jack Parson, and he named a lot of things that is actually accurate, so it can be confusing. He also talked about a book, Game of Gods, that I actually might check out. Who knows? I don't know if I can even remember after this, because child, the way my life be going. Anyways, the Phoenix program, and yada yada yada. Yeah. On the same podcast, another episode, he talked about the underground military bases, which also is true. I did my research on that. It is accurate. Major hubs were in the East Coast, then Central U.S., in Denver, Colorado Springs. States his family moved from the mountains of Arizona, Pentop, Lakeside, when he was about 12. Which, hold up, I'm just noticing Didn't he say 9 in another video? I don't know. Anyways, um, uh, child is I was just so disappointed because I was just like, I don't be having the time to try to break all of this stuff down. So when I find other people that know it and can regurgitate it better than me, I'm like, oh, perfect. I can just use the clip of them in that area. And then, isn't it better to show that somebody else is on the same type of time and I'm not crazy? But, oh my gosh, this guy pissed me off. Where was I? These are accurate programs that you can find. The purpose of pedophilia, he says, in sex rituals, in drinking blood, is to draw up the old guards. Of course, something I knew, so I thought he was a legit. The Queen of Beasts coin with the beasts around the European queen, yada yada yada. The dragons and serpent mounds, coats of serpents, and when he went on missions in the advanced trading program in Virginia. Another episode, same podcast, where he mentioned that his handler was the black guy. Nonetheless, whatever he was, let's get into what I felt was accurate and what was not adding up. I did find that his family is very well, in a hospitality, quote unquote, business. Based on his father's addresses, I could believe when the Reynolds family, his family, first moved to Arizona, they weren't in the same financial situation as in later addresses. I came into an older family member whose social media had connections with most of all the other family members as well, who also had connections which they may not have been following, but could possibly be people that he's talking about. But another thing, a lot of the sites, programs, cults, families, and references he mentioned are accurate. Eugene lived in Ohio in a 1910-ish. I'm not going to say that this 1910 is even accurate, but maybe around that time, if this is accurate from my research. And I think I'm pretty confident with my resources. Again, I pick websites and books and people that utilize actual real resource very carefully. But anyways, lived in Ohio around 1910, which he would have been 30ish, oldish, and I think this will probably be somebody even beyond his great grandfather. But anyways, what wasn't adding up? So his great grandfather Don Reynolds' obituary states that he retired in 1981, which was not the year that the Statue of Liberty's torch replaced. From the ASCE, and his obituary also say he was the director of policy planning and public affairs. According to this website, the second Statue of Liberty's torch was replaced in 1985. From 1984 to 1986, the renovation designed by this other guy, not his grandfather, built by under, I guess, this person's team. I cannot find that his great grandfather was ever the president of the ASCE. I'm going to show later a photo from the ASCE's website where they list the presidents, and never was his grandfather listed as one of the presidents in the NYC's region, because there's NSCEs in different area, in different regions, different cities, states, I guess. But NYC was the list that I'm going to post throughout different years, and I'm going to highlight the 80s. His grandfather was never on the list. Nathan would have been 13 years old ish when his grandfather passed, approximately in the 7th grade. And this kind of rang a bell for me because he talks about how he was viciously killing since like freaking 6 years old, right? He talked about, he had his first kill and where he had to bite someone's throat out. And even that, like, honestly, y'all, I did not find a discrepancy in somebody's biting someone's throat out, and that was surprising to me as well. I definitely did do my research on that, and they had some crimes where they didn't say it was a stab to the throat, but it was a throat wound. Who knows what that could be? So I don't know. He did some good ass research, or he knew some shit. I have no clue. But I did find some articles from the news where there was many for like neck stabs, somebody slitting someone's throat, but then there was some with unexplained neck injuries. Like they just say the neck wound, cuts on the neck, but a suicide. Like that don't even make sense. But yeah. Whatever you want to think about this, it rung a bell for me. As to either how much research he been doing or how he know this stuff. Anyways, he would have been about 11 years oldish, 6th, 7th gradish, not 9. 9 would be the 3rd gradish. None of his family members' names or occupants that I was able to access matched anyone from the 13 family Reynolds, nor his ancestry I was able to backtrack. It's quite funny how, baby, I can find more ancestry. You know what? That's a whole nother topic. Anyways, and then surgical castration is not reversible. Maybe a vasectomy could be, or medicated castration, but not when someone physically castrates you. And then, if I'm not mistaken, he said that this was a tradition for the males in his family, but all the males in his family had children. Anyways, he went on to have 4, like, but he was castrated. So this is his family. I exit the living family members' names out, other than, I mean, he says who his wife is, so I, whatever. But he never, from what I see, he never say who his parents were or his living grandmother. He never even say who his grandfather was, but he did mention Don Potter Reynolds. But the deceased grandparents, I did not include his grandmother that I came across, possibly name. I don't even quote that this is her maiden's last name. I was able to backtrack a little bit. His family members, based on this, I will say I did not see any connections with the actual Reynolds family ties, which was weird because I was really trying to find some connection here, and maybe the Reynolds adopted the name so easily because they're such a powerful family. But no, it not even that Potter, from what I've researched. And after researching back so far, I'm like, you know what, I'm done. I was just over this whole situation. So literally, with finding a list of the Reynolds family that is that family, they never matched any of the names, connected to his family, except a Potter. So I even took the time to research the Potters and go back on their ancestry a little bit more in depth to see if possibly his family was married into the Reynolds. Overall, I'm not convinced it's the same family. This is some of his ancestry's obituaries. And then I'm going to go into talking about the actual 13 family Reynolds. His great-grandfather was the director of the ASCE, and then also that he moved to Colorado in the year 2000 until he passed away in 2002. I do want to point out where he contradicted in two different podcasts that he wasn't related to one of the Reynolds that is clearly related to the family.
My name is Nathan Reynolds. I come from a family known as the Reynolds family, and they are in our area and in our country a very powerful family that's developed massive financial, political, and corporate influence. And they did that from the early 1800s, making literal deals with evil spirits. And I know it sounds kind of peculiar because if you just take the Reynolds family in particular, if you go back a few generations into the early 1800s, before Reynolds in the Americas, there's a aluminum company like wrap, cellophane, plastic bags, Ziploc bags, that kind of stuff. They also own a huge amount of the food production. About a sixth of all the food that's produced and sold and transported in the United States comes through the hands of the Reynolds family. And so they got into these big business deals because back in the early 1800s, they followed this old religion and were carriers of something called the Judas coin. They were the part of the trade is the priest class has all this secret knowledge that they then use to rule the kings with. And that's what they wanted. So that's how the Reynolds family, this is also documented in a book called The Gilded Leaf by Patrick Reynolds, who was a bloodline descendant specifically and in the actual inheritance of the Winston cigarette company, the tobacco empire that ended up buying Nabisco Foods, that ended up running the world.
What relation is it to you? Like an uncle?
I don't know that I am a bloodline relative of that guy.
Oh, okay.
Patrick Reynolds specifically. My Reynolds family is the one that does the black gold stuff, all the secret, disgusting, dirty money. They're the white launderers of the money, right? But you got to have your seedy, corrupt group. And that's what my family did. They did all the dirty stuff.
Wow.
And so but in his book, in his firsthand account, they talk about the Joshua coin and them using a coin that was from Judas.
My love, if he a Reynolds family and you a Reynolds family that's both claiming to be a part of the 13 Reynolds family, how that's not the same? How you don't know you have a kinship with him? Anyways, moving on along. So the Reynolds family, they are tied to a tobacco group, also heir to a tobacco group. They are Satanists. They're high-level drug dealers. They're in banking, in law. One is an actress. They're the owners of the aluminum Reynolds wrap, and they have marks in cremation, which is good for rituals because they can just clean up their own mess. Now, the information I found on the Reynolds family was actually posted within a library on the CIA's website. They mentioned that family is in the Middle South, which is Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Nathan says his family is from the Midwest. Well, initially his father's side is from New York, and then they moved to Midwest. And his mother's side was from California, which is none of these. And then the faith that this book has is Satanist, and along with other Christian groups that the Reynolds family are a part of. They also list numerous Reynolds families that are either active or past members of certain groups of these secret societies. and families and connections. Of course, I'm sure everybody is not listed, but the ones that was listed and on this other list that I like pulled up and found, none of the names matched Nathan Reynolds' family connections from the resources that I was able to come into. Everybody can make their own opinion on it, but that was also kind of offish to me. So this is the president of the American Society of Civil Engineers. The 1980s is highlighted in Don Potter. Reynolds is nowhere on this list. Why this? Because being a director of the NSCE is phenomenal. Like, for me, when you lie, it just mess everything up. Like, it messed everything else up, and whatever you say is no longer credible to me. And it's hard for me to trust or even listen to you at that point. So, although he was a part of the military in some way, he was in the reserve. So, even if that part of the story was fabricated and that was all, that could have been forgiven. But the rest, I don't know. I'm not going to count on him, but I do again believe a lot of the things he's saying. This is his father's past addresses, and even with that, like him moving around a lot, the areas he said they stayed, like all of these things I could believe, but it's like, shoot, like what's the lie coming in? Why you had to like make your story so grand and extra that you discredit everything? I mean, who knows? Maybe he was cut out the wheel and angry at his parents. Maybe he really was abused as a child, and his parents was Luciferians and his family was Luciferians, and he just, in his mind, because of the psychological damage, he fabricated the rest of his life to be tied to the Reynolds to make sense of why his family did that to him at a young age. Maybe it's all fabricated for a story and fame, or maybe it's all true and they just cut off outcasts of the Reynolds family that cut all ties or was married in some type of way. Look, all I know is that all of the I's is not dotted and all of the T's are not crossed. So I won't be using him as a reference for any of my growth or research. And also, like, Lord forbid, hopefully he is not plotting to do some type of killing rampage and then laugh in our face later, talk about well, he told y'all he killed thousands of people. Like, hopefully not. It's just so disappointing because we're living in a time where I won't say it's the end of days. I personally think we have more decades to go. We're gonna proceed to a digital world. We're gonna proceed to the robots, to the AI, to the this, to the that, and we also will have a group of people who still want human connection, who are seeking truthful people, who are seeking the truth, who are seeking God. And to have so many people in this world that is not real and portraying themselves to be real, it's just like, it's unfair, it's disappointing, and then it's just wicked. Like, one of the main reasons why I was like, I need to research this guy a little bit more before I credit his story, or use his story to credit mine, was the push of the JC. And anytime somebody is getting famous off of JC, I get skeptical, because at the end of the day, their story is fabricated too. And that is what, is like the resort, like the safe space for the world to follow, or for the higher ups that want the world to still be persuaded. They go towards to push, that story, and it's so believable, and it works so much because it's the number one religion. So that part about him definitely made me really want to see, why is this story. At first, actually, I was like, his family must have was like, okay, you can do your own thing, you can exit out the cult as long as you push this narrative. That's what I was thinking. I didn't expect to find all of this other stuff. But yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And it's like, no wonder the genuine people don't get play. The genuine people don't get play. It's so aggravating. But if you are in search for genuineness, truth, realness, please like and subscribe. You will not get me every week, every day posting, because when you come with authenticity in real life and genuineness, yeah, at least now that y'all not paying my bills, it's just not gonna happen. I'm not gonna. And then besides that, joke, not joke, but it takes time to really dive into the research that I've done on this guy. Took some time, and I'm very much so disappointed because I was literally looking to get the research and be like, aha, yes, he's a legit. I can use him to finish my other project that I'm working on, my inner growth, putting two and two together, why things happening in my life, and I will share that with you guys too. But I'm like, damn. I do hope that the people who are watching, if you're still here this long, you better like and subscribe if you're not already. My channel is definitely for truth seekers, people who realize where the world may be going, and they still want authentic life. I don't know how else to say it. Bye.